Tanisha Boyd, Summer 2023, EDAD 634. The Life and Times of Malcolm X. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. This is one of the famous quotes by Malcolm X. In this instructional video, I will convey through text and picture the life and times of Malcolm X. My goal is to explore ideology and political development of Malcolm X. I want my students to be able to identify personal, social, and political factors that influence Malcolm X's leadership. I want them to be able to express how they view and feel about his philosophies and why. I want to also convey to my students about the hardships that Malcolm X faced as a child that led to his realization about the importance of education and how he became a literal sponge for knowledge. Malcolm X was born in 1925 as Malcolm Little. His father was killed when Malcolm was just a young child by white supremacists. His mother took it very hard when his father was killed, so therefore his siblings and himself became dispersed among relatives in the foster system. Though he was an excellent student, he dropped out of school in the 8th grade because he faced racial discrimination from his teachers. At the young age of 20, he was incarcerated on charges of burglary. During this time in prison was a pivotal point and reflection for the philosophical, political trajectory of his life. In order to educate himself, he spent long hours reading books in prison, library, even memorizing a dictionary. He replaced his surname Little with X, which was custom among the Nation of Islam followers, who considered their family names to have originated from the white slave owners. As you can see, Malcolm X had a very hard life, difficult life growing up, but that didn't stop him. That did not deter him from the importance of education, and we shouldn't take it for granted growing up in the era of white supremacists and racial tension that only fueled his fire and pent up anger and frustration during the major phase of the civil rights movements from 1955 to 65. He preached on the streets of Harlem and spoke to major universities such as Harvard University and the University of Oxford. He criticized the mainstream civil rights movement, challenging Dr. Martin Luther King's central notions of interrogation and nonviolence. In contrast to King's strategy of nonviolence, civil disobedience, and redemptive suffering, Malcolm urged his followers to defend themselves, by any means necessary. Do you agree with this notion? Why and why not? The growing hostility between Malcolm and the Nation of Islam led to death threats and open violence against him. In 1963, there were tensions among Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad over the political direction of the Nation of Islam. In 1964, Malcolm left the nation and founded the Muslim Mosque Incorporated. During his pilgrimage to Mecca, he experienced a second conversion and embraced the Sunni Islam, adopting the Muslim name El-Hajj Malik el-Shabazz. Okay? The growing hostility between Malcolm and the Nation of Islam led to death threats and open violence against him. which led, sad to say, on February 21st, 1965, Malcolm X was assassinated while delivering a lecture at the Abudum Ballroom in Washington Heights. 3 members of the Nation of Islam were arrested. Malcolm was survived by his wife Betty Shabazz, whom he married in 1958, and 6 daughters. His martyrdom, ideas, and speeches contributed to the development of black nationalist ideology and the Black Power movement, and helped to popularize the values of autonomy and independence among African Americans in the 1960s and the 1970s. Okay, so now I have some definitions for you guys. And the first definition class is Elijah Muhammad. If you don't know who Elijah Muhammad is, he was the leader of the black separatist religious movement known as the Nation of Islam, sometimes called the Black Muslims in the United States. Okay? Do anybody know what the Civil Rights Movement is? I'm pretty sure you guys have heard it. The Civil Rights Movement was a mass protest movement against racial segregation and discrimination in the southern United States that came to national prominence during the mid-1950s. Okay, the Nation of Islam. I'm pretty sure you hear that name coming, so I'm gonna give you some insight for the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam are African American movement and organization founded in 1930 and known for its teachings combining elements of traditional Islam with black nationalist ideas. Okay, ideology is a form of social or political philosophy in which practical elements are as prominent as theoretical ones. Okay, and I have one more for you that mentions it. Autonomy, the quality or state of being, self-governing, especially the right self-government. Okay, so this concludes my instructional video of the life and times of Malcolm X. I wanted my students to get an understanding of his life as well as his legacy, the importance of education, which led to some of his philosophies. Feel free to leave a comment and let me know, do you agree with his philosophy of any means necessary and why? I thank you for taking the time to watch my video. Thank you.